Patrick, I was wondering, in preparing for Shador Sanders, he doesn't have a lot of NFL tape right now. So how are you prepared for that? You're studying a lot of his CU games, or like what's the preparation process for it?
Taking a look at the preseason, taking a look at the preseason games, and then the second half of the Baltimore game, just to kind of get a gauge and see what what Coach Reese and Stefanski what they're going to do with them. But the one thing they're going to rely on is the run game and that back. I mean, just the fact that backs. They got several backs that can run the ball. O-line's a veteran O-line that's worked together for a long time. So, and it's going to be interesting to see how they deploy those guys. But one thing for sure, that they're going to be confident about their run game. They got a pretty good scheme. He's always had a pretty good scheme running the ball.
Patrick, there's always development going on, young players that are just starting out. So, like in the case of a JJ McKees and a Tonka Hemingway, what are the benchmarks that you're looking for as you're gauging their progress?
One, you want to see them consistently having their eyes in the right place. That's one. Then can they get their hands in front of their eyes with low pad levels? So you're looking for them to play a little bit lower than they probably did in college because, again, I've said this before that those guys were hard to block in college, but like now you're dealing with the elite level of football players and offensive linemen. So you're going to need all the advantages you could gain in terms of pad level, hand placement, a good base. So you're looking for that to grow first, and then from there, any defensive lineman, can you get off of your block? Can you get off your block and make a play? Because again, when you're talking about like Cleveland's run game or anybody's run game, if you get single blocked, we're counting on you to be able to take care of your primary gap, fall into your second gap. So they got to be able to get off of blocks.
I know everything's earned here, and Tonka's getting some snaps now. But how do you kind of gauge their progress, and are you seeing their progress?
Progress in practice, and then when they get their opportunity in the game, trying to see if they're able to make a play, see if they're going through with the process that Robbie and the coaching staff has set for them. That's how we do it.
This year, how much has the defense been what Pete has done in the past, and kind of like what you have been comfortable with as a coordinator? How much has that?
Pete's the head coach. It blends together. The vision of the head coach in terms of what we're trying to do, in terms of playing with toughness, playing smart, playing disciplined football. But there's a blend. There's always going to be a blend. Every year is a blend of the different ideas and coaching staffs from different trees. That happens every year. It's nothing unique to us this year, in terms of that happening. We're always looking for new ideas.
And when you look at the way you guys are pressuring the quarterback, what do you feel like can improve on that? And believe you guys are near the bottom in terms of pressure rate and sacks. So what are you seeing on film that's kind of leading to the inconsistency and getting at the quarterback?
Just one guy, I got to do a better job with the calls and getting the guys in a better position. Two, just got to create some more opportunities that are longer down distance. For sure, it's pass, so the guys can play with some anticipation. But comes down to me. I got to do a better job.
I know you said they had multiple backs, but Judkins has been kind of the featured guy. What have you seen out of him this year as a rookie?
Great vision, great patience, how he presses the line of scrimmage to make the second level commit. And once you do that, then he's able to find holes. I was telling the players today, I said, you got to remember, most running backs in the league, they've been playing running backs since they were like 7 years old. So they got a ton of reps. A lot of you guys were linebackers. You played running back. You might have played tight end, something like that. Then you became a linebacker in high school or college. Or, you played tight end in high school. You become a D lineman in college. So, but most running backs, they've been toting that ball since they were little kids. So they got a lot of reps in terms of where the vision needs to be and finding holes. And you can see it with him. He's pretty exceptional.
Darian Porter, he was I believe he started in the Jacksonville game, and it's like his snap count has gone down since then. I was wondering when you're looking at figure out like how much reps he's going to get in game, like what's that decision making process like throughout the week?
Everything's a rotation, and everything's based on what we think is best for the game that week. So, all these guys, they work really, really hard, and it's a competitive room. Whether you're a rookie or a fourth-year player, it's just a competitive room, and we decide who's going to give us the best, what's the best plan for the week, and then we go with that. And then, in the game, we rotate guys. So.
And going back to Shador, now he's going to have like a full week of preparation. Just when you look back into what he did at CU, just what stood out to you and why you think he can be an effective player?
I'll be lying if I say I watch a lot of college football, but I did watch Colorado. The thing that stood out to me, there's leadership traits. I remember, I think, at either the combine or he came to visit. leadership traits. Obviously, the lineage from his father. Great player, so he's been around good football his whole life, knows football. Then when you watch the tape that stands out, I mean, he can make the throws. I mean, there's some throws even last week, some throws in the preseason that were pretty good. The one down in the red area where he found, or two, I think, in the red area he found them. On broken plays or like loose plays. He does a good job. He can throw the football. Definitely do that.
If there's one tendency that people notice is that he tends to try to escape back instead of stepping up. I mean, is there a way that you have to change your approach to him, a quarterback that does things differently like that?
You could check it. All young quarterbacks think that's the move. They all think that's the move, and I've told y'all before, you could do that, but the monsters are back there. So you got, but I'm sure, Coach Stefanski and Coach Reese, they're working on it to, step into the pocket, but that all young quarterbacks tend to do that because in college it's just different. It's just different. You got Max Crosby, Watt, those guys. I would stay the hell away from being back there. All right. Thank you.
Chip, quick question. You can want to do everything, but it's got to be able to. And I'm curious, how much right now is the offensive line impacting play calling?
I don't ever look at it that way. I look at it as who's available and then what's the best way to put those guys in situations where they can make plays. But to ask guys to do something that they can't do, isn't smart either. It's just, where are you? Like if you say, hey, we should be a really big zone read team. Well, if your quarterback can't run, then you shouldn't be a zone read team. Is it a good play? That's a great play. But I think it's always your offense is catered to who your personnel is, and then who your personnel is in this league switches on a weekly basis. You could be strong at one point in time up the middle, and then all of a sudden with a couple of injuries, you're not. So it's just how you adapt and adjust. And it's the same thing for everybody. There's nobody in the league right now that doesn't have guys out, and you just got to kind of have to deal with it. So it's always based upon who's available really that week, both as you try to implement a plan, and what do they have? You can say, hey, we think we're going to run the heck out of the ball this week. Well, that's the best thing they do, but they're last in the league in pass defense. So maybe you have to flip your philosophy a little bit that way in terms of, because they're banged up. They have 3 or 4 kids in the secondary out, but their D-line is outstanding. So, how do we take advantage of it that way? So I think it's on a weekly basis in this league, especially, it can morph and change all the time. So
How would you assess how the offensive line played Monday?
They battled. I think when you go against Quentin Williams and Kenny and Osa, those are 3 of the better defensive tackles all on the same team. So they attract a lot of attention in there. And then that leaves your tackles by themselves a little bit. So, they battled as well as they could have, and they competed. But, obviously there's a reason they traded a first and a second for Quentin. You could tell that immediately when you saw him on the field. And then obviously you traded Micah Parsons for Kenny Clark. So, and Kenny's a really good player. And then obviously Osa's a really good player, and I know him very well because I coached him in college. So, that's just part of the deal in this league. Some teams are stronger up the middle. Some teams are stronger on the edges. It really just depends on who you're facing. But, they're battling and playing as hard as they can. And that's the one thing that you ask for all your players is what type of effort are you playing with? And they're playing with great effort right now.
Looking back at the Cowboys game, do you guys wish I know Pete said the game plan was to establish more of the play action and pass game early on, but looking back at it, do you wish you could have?
No, because I thought if you look at the play action and passing game, we went up and down the field with it. So, we only punted 3 times in a game, so I thought we moved the ball offensively. And I think, Brock was involved in it, and Gino did a really nice job. And then it's another way to get the balls to the running backs. I think it was Ashton's high for catches in a game, so that's just part of the process, depending on who you're playing and what you have available to you.
And just even though like you guys were playing behind, leading to more passes. Like even when you guys do run the ball, whether it was in Dallas or in previous weeks, it's struggle to find some type of consistency for positive yardage. I was wondering, is that more just not having 2 of your top offensive linemen on the field?
That could be a byproduct of it, and then also, like I just said, you got to give credit to the defensive line that you were going against. So, sometimes it's you got to make decisions based upon what do they have available and what do you have available, and saying, is that a good decision in that situation?
Ashton's going to be involved in pass protection again this week. How would you assess how he's done so far, and what are areas in there that you'd like to see him improve?
Yeah, he's like a normal rookie. I think sometimes just making sure, because the blitzes in this league are so exotic, and way more exotic than they were in college. No one runs option in professional football. So, there are some schemes where there's 7 guys on one side, 1 guy on another. And in college, you couldn't get away with that because they'd run speed option out the back door, and But if you do that, your quarterback's probably not going to play very long either. So, with them being the highest paid players in this league, you don't do that. So just understanding each week the blitz patterns from each team are really specific. And then what most defensive coordinators do is that they put in new blitzes for you in your game that they hadn't shown on tape yet. So you have to make that adjustment. And it's an easier adjustment if you're like, oh, yeah, I saw this last year. I saw this the year before. I saw this, when you got a bank time. Like when we see some looks, Gino's like, oh, I saw that 4 years ago. And when we were playing San Francisco and Robert Saleh did this to us, like he has a great background because of his experience in it. So Ashton's doing a really good job in terms of the technique and what we're doing. It's just a matter of how much can he get exposed to all the different blitz looks that you're going to get in this league when you play against really good defensive coordinators. And we're playing against an outstanding one this week, and that's why this will be the top defense we faced so far this year, because Coach Schwartz does an unbelievable job with those guys. And he's got players like Myles Garrett, who's probably the defensive player of the year, playing right now, who's got 15 sacks so far through 10 games. So, we certainly have our work cut out from a pass protection standpoint, but I think he's battled in there and he's getting better every week.
Strictly as a receiver, you said he had his season high. Just where do you see him developing just as a receiver?
He's the same thing. I think the coverages and how people are playing them, and I'm not sure how much man coverage Ashton saw in college. If you're in the Mountain West, I don't know if he really wanted to play man coverage against someone as talented as Ashton. So you're going to see a lot more zone at the college level. When you get to the NFL level, there are linebackers that are as fast as our running backs, so they're going to match up with them a little bit. So, learning how the nuances and the intricacies of the routes, it's the same as the protection, but you can see him progressing each week from that standpoint.
Ian Thomas is a guy that's getting a lot more. Will you talk about just how you're seeing him evolve in your offense, please?
Yeah, and Ian, when we picked him up last offseason, we were really, really excited about him. Obviously, you look at it and you say, oh, well, you got 2 tight ends. Well, we lost Brock for 4 or 5 games there, and thank goodness we had Ian here. You know what I mean? So the more he keeps practicing and playing, the more he's involved. When you lost Jacoby, you lost a receiver. Part of the answer is, well, maybe we got an extra tight end, and maybe we'll play a little bit more some tight end formations just because of what we have available to us. So I think whenever we've asked Ian to do anything, I think he's really excelled at it. That was a big catch for us on that second drive there that got us down into the red zone. So I'm really pleased with him. We feel like with Brock, with Mike, and with Ian, we got 3 guys that can really play, and the other guy who's really started to make a name for himself from a special team standpoint, Carter Runyon, is another tight end that's really coming along for us too. So that's probably the position that we have right now, especially on the offensive side of the ball, that has the most depth, is our tight end position.
We've seen the evolution of more 12 and 13 personnel, football wide. What's that the byproduct of? Is it what defenses are doing? Are there just more better tight ends?
I think I think it's individual. It's different each league, but there's always. It's unique if you just are a fan of football to watch the waves of this offense is doing this. So then how does the defense catch up? And then if the defense catches up and has an advantage, so then what is the offense's counter to that? And it kind of goes back and forth where there were a lot more, probably 10 and 11 personnel earlier, getting more speed on the field. Defense combated that by putting more speed on the field. So if you put more speed on the field, then we'll put bigger guys on the field because that's a mismatch for you. And so defenses are moving back to getting bigger, and then I think offenses will probably move in the other direction. It goes back and forth, and it's the fun part of it, But I think I would think the numbers in the league itself are down. The scoring is down. I think the defenses are playing really, really well right now, and I think they've got a pretty good feel for what it is. So people are starting to change it up. I know the Rams a week ago had played, I think 30 of their 67 snaps were in 13 personnel. And they have Puka and Devontae at wide receiver, but they were still in 13 personnel.
So
So
an 11-man.
yeah,
11.
and so I also think it's what's available to you. So it's the same thing when you can say, hey, we should go to 13. Well, who are those 3 tight ends, and are they, and where does that match up with what you have receiver wise? Because that's where the give and the take comes from. There's really usually everybody's got one back, and then who are the other 4 guys? Is it 3 tight ends and 1 receiver? Is it 2 receivers? Is it 3 receivers and 1 tight end? It goes back and forth, but I think the first and foremost for you to play in 12 and play in 13, you better have tight ends that can play in 12 and play in 13. And the more versatile those tight ends are, the more varied the looks are you can give to a defense.
When you go up against a guy like Myles Garrett, how much does it help to have Max Crosby for your offensive lineman to go up against throughout the entire season?
Well, Max can't play O-line. We already checked to see if he could do that, but I think we'd tire him out a little bit. But, there's similarities, I think, just because they're both tremendous athletes for their size, and I think that's the one thing about Myles that when you look at him, obviously he's a freakish looking guy that, you know, he's 270 something pounds and moves like a linebacker. But then when you watch his movement skill, you're like, there aren't many big people that move that way. So, you know, we going against Max and OTAs and things like that is, you know, I think can help our tackles, you know, in terms of some of those things. But I don't know if there's anybody out there that can really simulate Miles because, as I said, you know, he's got 15 sacks right now and we're 10 games in. You know, he's on track to set the record in the history of the league for sacks. So, you know, he's as good as we're going to face out there. So that's got a ton of attention for us.
You've talked a lot about what you like about Jordan at center this year. He was at guard last game. Was that more what you liked about putting him at center?
That was more about what was available to us. So trying to put the best 5 on the field. Obviously, you wish you had no injuries so Jordan could stay at center and we didn't have to make any moves. But, you know, when you start to get where we are with the injuries in the offensive line, it's what's the next, who's the next best guy to put in the game? And Willie was the next best guy to put in the game. So obviously we're going to put Willie in at center. He's more comfortable at center. And then Jordan has experience at guard, and probably the most experience of anybody on our team at guard. You know, and when we were playing against Quinnen and Kenny and Osa, where they had really good 3 techniques and guys that lined up on the guard, we felt like having Jordan and the experience at guard was going to help us.
How far away is Caleb, do you think, from being ready?
How far what?
Caleb from being ready? Maybe?
It could be 2 plays into the game on Sunday. That's you never know. I mean, just because of where we are from a depth standpoint. So. You know, we'll go through training today and training tomorrow and finalize who the 5 guys are going to be. But we're always going to put the 5 best guys out in the field, and that's Pete's philosophy, and I've always agreed with it. Everything's about competition. You know, it's got to be earned on the playing field. And last week Willie earned it, but he's got to continue to do it this week. And is that the right combination with Willie at center and Jordan at guard? You know, if that is, then so be it. But they all get it. They all get reps during the week, and so you know we'll have a finalization of kind of what that lineup will look like tomorrow after practice. Thanks, guys.